Hello, everybody. Welcome into the cycle, part 2 of the week. This is our buys and sells, and it's kind of a special buys and sells because it's buys and sells ahead of the real-life trade deadline, and also the trade deadline in a lot of fantasy leagues is coming up as well. So we're kind of, taking the approach of like this can be a buy low or a buy high, sell low, and a sell high. It's really, that's kind of what we always do, but it's really just like trade targets, right, in general, because we are up against it. This is the stretch run coming up here very shortly, Mayor, for fantasy leagues, whether it's a roto league or, a head-to-head league. So these are just some of our favorite targets that we're looking to trade for or trade away. You can go first. Who's your favorite buy?
Yeah, so normally on FantasyPros.com, we do the weekly featured pros article where we ask the experts, who's your buy low, who's your sell high, and I participate every week. And so this week, since we are approaching the, like you said, the real life MLB deadline and the fantasy trade deadline, we did more of like a trade deadline edition, but it's still the same thing. Like, who are you looking to buy? Who are you looking to sell? The player I said that I was looking to buy is Edward Cabrera. And it's obviously in leagues where I need pitching, he's one of my top targets. He's been quietly excellent since a rough start this season, and his name is also now popping up in real life trade rumors. And so going from the Marlins to a better team, no offense to the Marlins, but a team with maybe better defense or better offense to support him and get some more wins, he could be really valuable. And so I don't want to go on and on, but He had a really rough start to the season, and he's been, like I said, really good recently. And I think there's even more upside there, especially if he can go to a better situation. And just to throw a couple of the names out there that I thought might be in the price range for him, I listed Austin Hayes, Marcelo Meyer, although he just got hurt, so put a pin in him. Ryan O'Hearn, your boy, Spencer Steer, Addison Barger, or Yandy Diaz. What do you think about those?
I think I'd keep... I didn't catch every name you said, honestly, but I think Yandy Diaz, I'd rather have him than Cabrera. But I like Cabrera as a target in general. I think you make a good point. We just talked on part 1 of the cycle this week with George Bissell of Roto World, and we talked a little bit about Cabrera as a real-life trade target and a guy who could really benefit from moving. Like, you say no offense to the Marlins. Offense to the Marlins. Like, it'd be great to see him move somewhere else. So I think it's a good... Who are some of the other names you threw out besides Yandy? You said Ryan O'Hearn. I would do that one, actually.
Austin Hayes, Spencer Steer.
I think I would move Hayes if I had outfield depth because he's a guy that gets banged up a lot and tends to run hot and cold. So I'd be willing to move him if I had, if I wasn't like desperate at the position. Like I said, I wouldn't move Yandy. I would move O'Hearn. So yeah, I think those are some like kind of the right names to be thinking about though.
Awesome. What about you?
My favorite target is Dylan Cease. This is somebody that I actually am trying to trade for in a league and have not successfully done it yet. But he's one of those guys that has been disappointing this year and disappointing 2 of the last 3 years, but very consistently does seem to have these underlying metrics that would suggest he is better than what the actual production and results have been. You're getting the strikeouts, right? Like that hasn't changed at all.
Right.
88th percentile in strikeout percentage, just under 30% strikeout rate. That's obviously excellent. If you look at the walk rate, it's actually just a hair off his career low. Not that it's a low number, but it's lower than it has been in some of these other seasons. Combining that with the really high strikeout rate is appealing to me. The expected ERA, and again, this has been the case in other years, is over a full run lower than his actual ERA. His ERA is 4.59. His expected ERA is 3.48. And that's in line with like his xFIP is 3.30. His actual FIP is 3.49. Like these numbers all are kind of uniformly suggesting that this should be lower. It's the highest home run to fly ball rate since 2020 for him. It's not like insanely high, but it is higher, which isn't helping a lot of this case. The BABIP against him is pretty high this year compared to last year at least. So again, this is one where it almost feels weird to make the case for it based on the underlying numbers because that's been a consistent theme for him in his career. But it's really hard for me to look away a guy who right now is on a good team that's going to win games and could also get traded as somebody that applies to, who strikes out so many batters, whose numbers say that he should be having more success than he does. And it's one of those things where I didn't draft him a lot this year, and yet I still feel like I have to say I can't quit Dylan Cease. And I know you are in the position of trading him away in a lot of places because you did draft him this year.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was thinking back to some of our preseason shows, and I kind of I remember bringing up Dylan Cease more than once, and my main talking point was I pretty much know what I'm going to get out of Dylan Cease: mid-3 ERA and 200 strikeouts, and that's what I want. I'm getting the 200 strikeouts, but I'm getting a mid-4 ERA, which is not what I wanted. I wanted a mid-3 ERA. But like you said, it's interesting that like you said, FIP, xFIP, SIERA, and xERA, they're all like within a few points of each other, and it's those metrics use different formulas to generate their numbers. And so it's interesting that despite using those, different formulas, they're all very close to each other and all, pointing to significantly better outcomes than what his actual ERA is showing.
Yeah. And even aside from the ratio numbers, like you're going to get 200 strikeouts by the end of the season for him. So like if that's, you could just straight up need strikeouts and say, I'm hoping the ERA gets better, but if I'm in a points league where the strikeouts really matter, or if I really need them to catch up in the category in Roto, like I think it's worth it even for that, let alone building in the, statistically probable improvement of the ERA. But of course, you never know; it's no guarantee. All right, let's go to the guys that we're looking to get rid of. I'll let you go first again. Who do you have? So
the player that I wrote up for the player I'm looking to sell is Brandon Woodruff, and like Edward Cabrera, it's a pretty simple formula for me. He started the year on, injured. He went on the longest rehab assignment of all time. And a consistent theme throughout his rehab assignment was that his velocity was way down. And he's back now. Velocity is still down, but the results have been excellent. And so I kind of don't know what to make of him. My theory is that another shoe is going to drop soon, because we've only, as of this recording, we've only gotten 3 appearances out of him, and they've all been really good. But the concern is the dip in velocity. In 2023, his four-seamer averaged nearly 96 miles an hour. Now it's a hair under 93. And in 1995, a 93-mile-an-hour fastball was great. In 2025, it's actually below average. And so while he's mixing a new cutter, which is, I think, in some ways helping him because he's leading with his fastball but mixing in the cutter. The problem is the cutter is getting hit pretty hard. It's got like a 667 batting average against when I looked at it. And the velocity of that is even lower. It's hovering around 89 miles an hour. And so while I'm a Brandon Woodruff fan, and he's been really good since he's returning, I think we might be dealing with a small sample size situation, and that the future results are going to be much, much worse. And so I'm looking to sell high if I have Brandon Woodruff and see, who I can acquire.
The velocity is definitely concerning. I'm glad you brought him up because he has been better than I expected in these first few starts. So I think he's somebody that you can convince a manager in your league to say, look, Brandon Woodruff is back. This is great. And try and trade him away. I think it's a great call. I really struggled to come up with a good sell target on my own. So I did something that I used to do a lot last year, which is I pulled up that article that you referenced that we had on the site, and I picked out my favorite one that somebody had selected in the article. And I want to kind of put a shine on the site and tell everybody they should go read the whole article and see kind of all the breakdowns of these guys. I also considered, since I got to the sheet before you, putting Edward Cabrera and Brandon Woodruff, since those who you picked, and just taking them from you. I did not do that. But Brandon Myers from Razzball was one of the contributors to this article this week on FantasyPros.com, and he picked Paul Skenes, and I thought it was a really great case. If you look at the last 30 days, he's SP 38, even with his great ERA and whip, strikeout, and all that, because he plays for the Pirates. He is not going to win games. And it's not just the fact that you're not going to get a lot of wins with the Pirates. It's that they have also announced they are going to put a limit on his workload, which makes sense given that they're not competing for anything. They said he's not going to miss starts, but they're going to manage each start. I don't like the sound of that in terms of trying to get more quality starts out of him, just general innings to rack up the, ratio help, or the, just getting more strikeouts. And the key thing is, he's Paul Skenes, so you can get something really valuable for him, I would think. Yeah. It's not like you're saying, hey, this is a guy that everything I just described applies to, and he doesn't also have a ton of name value, so like what are you going to get for him? People will say, oh, Paul Skenes, the best pitcher in baseball, or second best behind Skubal. Like, yes, of course I'd love to have that on my team. He's bound to regress to start getting more wins, right? He has 1 win since May. Like, this is not going to go well in terms of fantasy for as good as he is in real life. He hasn't thrown 90 pitches in a game since June 19th. I mean, like, again, I want to give credit to Brandon, who wrote this up in the article. This was his case, and I just think it's a really compelling one that I strongly agree with. So I wanted to kind of sell that. He lists some other options if you don't want to move Skenes. I think moving Skenes is a great call. Like he puts it well. It's a smart move that's hard to make, but at the end of the day, it is a smart move. So like, what do you think about moving a guy as kind of big time as Skenes? Because I love the idea.
Yeah, I like the idea, and we talked about it a little bit last year because the Pirates did the same thing last year. They slow played him in the second half, and they pulled him from starts early. They said he's going to have an innings limit, and we're basically going to shut him down. And last year is because he was coming in without a ton of innings under his belt, and he ended up throwing 133 innings at the major league level, plus 27 more in the minors. This year he's already at 127 in three weeks into July, and so I don't know how many more innings they're going to let him go. So we're probably going to start seeing him get pulled in the fourth inning of games, or 5 innings max. We're not going to see him pitch deep into games because the Pirates have nothing to play for. He's their most valuable player by a lot, and they're going to in their mind protect him and try to limit the innings. And so not only is he not going to get wins as he's on the Pirates, he might not even throw 5 innings. And at that point, you're not getting as many strikeouts. And then he really becomes a less valuable piece. And so if you are going to trade him, you probably need to do it now, not only because the trade deadlines are coming up in leagues, but also if he comes out and into the next 2 starts and only throws four innings, his value is going to go down, and you're not going to get as much in return for him. So I think if you are going to trade him, you have to do it soon.
If you're struggling with lineup decisions, our lineup assistant recommends optimal lineup suggestions to maximize your team's performance each day or week. Just sync your league for tailored guidance based on your roster and league settings. Download the Fantasy Baseball My Playbook app or visit fantasypros.com/MLB My Playbook to set your winning lineup today. Let's go to waivers central here. I'll go first on this one. We're going to do a hitter and pitcher each. My favorite hitter is somebody that has been mentioned in this section of the show repeatedly this year, but I wanted to highlight him again because he continues to be under-rostered. Matt Shaw of the Chicago Cubs, second, third, and short eligible, depending on the site you're on. This has actually gone up a little since I wrote down in the sheet, so I'm looking at the updated one. He's now 22% rostered on Yahoo, 15% rostered on ESPN. I had written down 47% on CBS. I didn't look at the updated on that one, but under 50% there as of last night. So a guy who continues to be pretty available. He's on a bit of a power surge. He has 3 home runs in his last 5 games. He's somebody who has given you stolen bases during the season. He has 2 of those in his last 6 games as well, so that's continued, getting hotter with the batting average. He's a good hitter that a lot of us really liked before the season and had higher expectations for, that did not live up to them early, and he has gone on slumps. I mean, his batting average for the season is .221, but again, it's been better lately, and it just seems like he is we talked about this with George in rounding the bases this week, how the gap between the minor leagues and the major leagues is as wide as it's ever been. We've talked about it, you and I, in previous episodes. Mm-hmm. So he has played 69 games this season. I think it's totally reasonable to expect that adjustments are being made, and 3 of the 5 homers he's hit this season have come in the last week. So I'm kind of viewing that as something that I think he's not going to keep hitting 3 homers every 5 days, but I think it's going to continue to just see that he has progressed a bit. And I'm not saying he's a league winner. I feel like I say this every week with this section, but I'm not saying he's a league winner, but he is way too under-rostered right now.
I don't know if I can get in on it. I don't know if I can be hurt by Matt Shaw again. He's hurt me so many times already this year. We talked about him in the preseason. I know Kelly was very high on Matt Shaw coming into the season. I know other smart fantasy analysts like George like Matt Shaw, but it's just been so inconsistent. And I get the point that we're talking about these hitters. They've never seen pitching like this before. They struggle, and the good ones kind of turn it around. I just don't know if he's going to turn around enough. It is exciting that he's hit the 3 home runs. He's still batting .217 in July after batting .193 in June, and so I still have concerns that he's just going to go cold again, and he's going to be a killer-free batting average.
Don't you think 22% rostered is just too low?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think it is. I
0% rostered for me.
I think it's too low, and third base is a tough spot to fill. I think he should be just the upside and the possibility that he is kind of taking a step forward and having adjusted is enough for me to say that number should be closer to 50%. I think 22% is way too low.
Yeah, the other bummer there is that he's batting ninth in the lineup. He's still buried at the bottom of the lineup, and he did just face 3 lefties in a row. And so I worry when he gets back to a more righty-heavy schedule, still batting ninth. I worry about what we're going to see there. But I hope you're right. I like Matt Shaw.
Well, listen, let's go to your player, and you can't sit here and talk about, like, I'm tired of getting burned by players and then throw out the name you're throwing out.
Oh, man, let's skip mine. I forgot about who I picked.
Well, we could go quickly on it because we don't have a ton of time.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of players who have burned you many times, how about Royce Lewis? Can I interest you in any Royce Lewis? He's more rostered than Matt Shaw. He's under 50% in most leagues, so in Yahoo, under 50%, slightly over in CBS. But he's a player that we've seen the immense talent, but he's just never on the field. He's always hurt. And he's also riding a heater right now. I forget. I wrote a stat down. If I can pull it up, we can go quick. 3 home runs in 4 games. So he's also heating. He's the same amount of home runs in one less game than one fewer game. One fewer game.
it is fewer.
But I'm comparing it to Matt Shaw, so I think it is one. I think it's fewer. It's right. You're right. It's fewer.
It's fewer if you can count it individually. It's less if it's like water or air, like something you can't count individually.
Okay.
So
I
fun little grammar lesson for you.
Yeah. Well, I always use the grammar lesson of like if you're like directly comparing, then it's less.
At trivia last night, one of the rounds referenced to gerund, and I was like, "That's a deep cut for grammar if you remember from like high school English."
That is
I did remember, but like the person I was sitting with at trivia was like, "What on earth is a gerund?"
We'll get into that next. But yeah, it's real. We don't have to spend a lot of time. You know, Royce Lewis. He can be really good when he's really good if he's on the field. He's been really hurt a lot, and even when he came back, he was not very good. But he's also heating up. So even if you pick him up and stash him, I think he's someone you should pick up. And again, like you said, third base, very shallow position.
My favorite pitcher, Brandon Walter. I just picked him up in our Deep Keeper League earlier this week, along with Noah Cameron. I kind of was revamping the depth of my pitching staff. And then yesterday, I picked up the guy that you're about to talk about. So a lot of these guys I did just pick up and actually, put my money where my mouth is. So wrap us up quickly with your pitcher.
Sure. So Quinn Priester he's been pitching really well. He actually does have a little bit more strikeout upside. He's been really good since June. 1.98 ERA in June, 3.04 ERA in July, and a 1.38 ERA to start the second half. Only 13 innings, so small sample size, but he's been really good. And since June, more than a strikeout per inning, which is big for him because not necessarily the biggest strikeout guy. Only has, if I'm looking at the right page here, only has 86 strikeouts in 101 innings, but a lot of that is from his kind of slow start. And like I said, since June, more than a strikeout per inning. And I don't think he's a 2-star pitcher this week. But, you know what? I think he actually has a matchup against the Cubs this week. I think that was going to be the one downer I wanted to bring up. Let me just double check that is correct. Yeah, he has the matchup against the Cubs. So that's the one caveat is that he has a tough matchup this week, but I still think he's worth rostering.
I picked him up not planning to start him this upcoming week, but just because I wanted to kind of take the swing on him for the stretch run. So
yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
All right, you want to read through these deep league targets quickly? By the way, I know people don't like when I talk about quickly. I just have a hard out because I have to go tape something else, so that's why we're kind of moving a little quicker here. It's not because we don't want to keep talking more baseball, but quickly give us your deep league targets.
Yeah, they really don't like when you say that. So
yeah.
So deep league targets, and I did want to mention at this part of the year, waivers, like I kind of mentioned before we were chatting, it can be just a crapshoot out there, and so a lot of these targets are almost deep league targets by default. But Colson Montgomery is one. He's a younger prospect. He's been playing well. Slade Ciccone, I think is that his name? Ciccone? I'll have to check that.
I'm not the pronunciation guy.
Yeah, and Chris Paddock. So they're pretty deep name guys, but Montgomery and Teal are pretty highly touted prospects, especially in 2-catcher leagues for Kyle Teal. He just hit his first home run the other day.
All right, we'll wrap things up there. Be sure to check out our conversation with George Bissell from Roto World. That was in part 1 for Rounding the Bases this week. And also be sure to stick around for part 3, where we talk about some pitching streamers and our 2-star pitcher competition. For Mayor, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.